Our next webinar will be in May. It'll be the second Monday in May. So I don't know exactly what the date of that is, but that'll be our kind of our annual Cogitate webinar, and George will be doing the presenting and not me on that webinar. So that'll be, please mark that on your calendars. It's the second Monday in May. I believe it's May 12th. So today we're going to talk about go through our updates that have happened in the last month. I'm going to give a look at our new purchase orders. We've been putting a lot of work in the last months about updating our purchase order to the new window and making a lot of enhancements to our purchase order system. So I'm going to be showing a lot of that today. And then also some helpful information that based on some support calls we've been getting, some information that some of you may or may not know to kind of help you with potential issues. So without further ado, I'm going to go to updates. We added the 2025 941 in the voucher section. We added that in March, so you can, I'm assuming, I think your 941s are due at the end of this week. So we also added voucher now to the 941, so you can print with a voucher. We added a new option in payroll post to disable modified rates. Again, I'll go through and show off some of that. We remove the ability to enter in negative numbers in certain fields and fixed assets. These fields should not include a negative number. They're just some fields that we realized that you could accidentally type in a negative number, and that should not be allowed. If you're using MyWork, we added a time clock information to the approval page on MyWork. So when a supervisor goes in to approve a time card, they will be able to see the time entered, the time clock information for an employee to track when they punched in and punched out. So we added that per request. In the 1099, there was an issue where if you were going to use the 1099 name in the MISC form, you had to check the 1099 address flag. That was a bug. And we fixed that. So if you just type in 1099 MISC name, you no longer have to check the 1099 address flag. Something that we kind of did behind the scenes was you may or may not have noticed that we standardized all our currency text boxes. So across all our new windows, the currency text boxes are now uniform. And then in financial statements, there was a bug where on the monthly looks, it was treating M1 as January 1st and not the first month of your fiscal year. M1 is supposed to be the first month of your fiscal year, not necessarily January 1st. The other thing that we came across last week that I want to point out to everybody is in our quarterly tax reports, when you go to state, you'll see that the taxable wage limit is 9,500, and that is coming from a file that we don't have access to. So the state of Michigan had just updated this to be 9,000. So you're going to want to change it to 9,000. So that's the new taxable wage limit. It doesn't come from our tax tables. It comes from this field right here. So if you haven't already done your first quarter MyWAM, you're going to want to make sure that gets updated to 9,000. So it's okay. So it saves on the export. So when you click on when you click on the MI file button, and it saves it to the INI file. So if you happen to already submit your MyWAM with the wage limit at 9,500, you'll probably get a letter from the state of Michigan saying there was a mathematical incorrect calculation, and they'll have the proper amount of taxes owed, as we did, and it'll just be, if you look on your MyWAM, they'll just refund you the difference from your taxable wage limit. So there's no penalties or anything like that, but we just want to make everybody aware that this is currently how we get the taxable wage limit. You just have to enter it yourself. I believe next year we are going to implement this into our tax table, so we'll be the ones updating it automatically. So whenever they make changes, we'll be on top of that. But we didn't realize that this doesn't come from the tax table, so I just want to make everybody aware of that. All right. So, does anybody have any questions on that? before I move on to covering some of these, a quick look at some of these updates. So I'm not seeing any questions. So I want to go into vendors, payables. I want to go into vendors. And I want to show what the bug was. So if you go into taxes and you clicked on 1099 MASC and you see this name and you typed in a name, before you had to click this box for our 1099 form generator up here to pick up that name, but we fixed that, so now you don't have to check that. So that's one of the fixes we did. And then so purchase orders, we've spent some time updating the both purchase order calc, or as it's now called restock calc, and the purchase orders window to our new style of window, and I'll be showing that off today. We're still working on some things, but it is nearing completion, and all the reports will be updated to out of Crystal into Intel reports. So I'll be showing off one of the new reports as well. So obviously they're being converted to a new style of window. Purchase orders, we're going to add several new features. So one thing we added to our purchase order lines, each purchase order line will have a line number. So now you'll be able to order each line inside the purchase order, so you can see on the purchase order itself, you'll be able to organize it in the way you want instead of just being automatically generated. So we'll give you more control over what item appears first on the purchase order. We added a separate bill to and ship to addresses for each PO. We'll add a new menu item that it will be just like the addresses, the deduction addresses, but instead it'll be your shipping addresses. So we know that sometimes you want it to build to the road commission, but shipped to a garage. So we're going to add that feature as well. Yeah, new menu item called purchase order addresses. Yeah, where you can create and ship. All addresses that have been used that currently in the database will be converted into purchase order addresses. So when we release our menu item, there'll be a script that's run behind the scenes that will convert all your addresses that you've used in purchase orders will be converted to those addresses. So they'll automatically appear in that new menu item. We'll have a new approval system for approving a purchase order. In preferences, I'll show off that as well. There'll be a new system for setting for the auto approve limit. So like if you can set up the auto approve limit at 500, meaning a purchase order that is 500 or under will automatically be approved. Otherwise, a supervisor or a administrator will have to come on and actually approve a supervisor. And any purchase order, as I said, any purchase order that has lines totaling less than or equal to the auto approve limit will automatically be approved when generated by the restock inventory calc or when saving a new purchase order. Most fields will be disabled when a PO has been approved, as once a PO has been approved, it is ready to send to the vendor, and changes should not be made to a purchase order after it has been approved. One of the new things that we're going to be doing is instead of a report, we're going to be generating the purchase order as a PDF and making it so thus it's easier to save. We can get a better look and feel of a PDF and not just through reports. So because you can easily save a PDF, you can email a PDF. So we're excited to have it as a PDF format and not an Entella report. So this will allow easier save and emailing. Each PO now will have a notes field that will appear on the generated purchase order. I know we have notes for each line, but we'll also be adding a notes for the entire purchase order. And on the purchase order itself, the PDF, there will be that field, all those notes will show up on that purchase order. We also did work updating the restock inventory calc to our new style of window. We now do some validation. Any inventory items that will have an issue when generating the PO will appear in red on the screen. Again, I'll go through and show everything. You can now specify where items get shipped and where to send the bill through our with the different addresses. And I believe you could in the restock calculation, you'll be able to manually change the address as well. All right, and now I'm going to show off our new purchase order and highlight some of the changes we made. So obviously our purchase orders are going to be on our new screen, as you should be very familiar with a lot of the layout of the screen with the save, the new, the search bar on this side with all your purchase orders. The first thing I want to point out is we have it limited by the fact that they haven't been completed. So if I click the limit, you'll see all your purchase orders, and this will hide all the ones that have been completed. Now most things the same. The purchase number, when you click on a new, the purchase number is automatically generated. We have the vendor. You can enter the vendor code. We have the vendor code. Most fields are the same from the old. One of the new things we added was this ship to and bill to address for your purchase orders. So instead of having one address, you can now specify a different address that the line numbers get shipped to, and then a separate address for that the invoice gets sent to. So we added a new window, which I'll show in a bit, called purchase order addresses. So that's where you can edit your addresses for your purchase orders. You can also click on this button and it will pull up the purchase order address window. The second thing we added was this whole approval method, and you don't have to use it, but it's a way that you can lock most fields in a purchase order if you wanted them to be approved, and also if you need it to be approved, and you click print, it'll say not approved on the print. So if you click on the first approved, it'll automatically fill in your username and the first approved date, and most of the fields will be locked so they cannot edit it anymore. And if you want to, you can do a second approve as well, and it really doesn't matter which order the approve is. Just clicking one of these will lock all the fields. We added a new notes field, so you can type in notes on the purchase order. You can go ahead and type in a note, and it'll add it to that. So in the notes on a certain layouts of our purchase orders, you'll be able to see the notes. And then down at the bottom are all the purchase order lines. So you can click add, you'll add a PO line. You don't have to have an inventory code, because sometimes not every single thing you want in a purchase order, such as like toilet paper, paper towels, or soap and stuff like that, don't have an inventory. But you do have to have a quantity in order for it to save. So I'm going to put a quantity of 2, costs $4 each, and then I'm going to hit save. And then it saved it. Like I said, you don't have to have an inventory code, but you can change you could add or change an inventory code by just double clicking on the thing, and you can select this from the drop down. Now as I mentioned before, we changed how you print a purchase order, and instead of running a report, we now generate a PDF, so you can go ahead and hit print, and you will see your purchase order. It's just a PDF where you can go ahead and hit save. You can print. You can just save it. So it's supposed to be a lot easier to save and email to your vendors. So that's basically the changes that we were going to make for purchase orders. Purchase order address is very similar to deduction addresses. It's just a way you can specify different addresses for the ship tos and the bill to. If you click on this, will validate the address, and if it is a valid address, it'll show as a last date verified. So after I click that, it automatically updated, and it said today was the last date verified. So it has been verified. We added a new print purchase orders. That all that really is it allows you to print a batch of purchase orders and so go ahead and hit print. It'll generate all the purchase orders in the PDF. So it'll be a big list. So you can see 633 different purchase orders. So you'll see each purchase order with the style and that. So this one's just for printing just any kind of purchase orders. Instead of one at a time, you can do many. Then we also updated restock inventory calc, where you need to specify a ship to and a build to. This one is going to be my build to, and I want this one to be this one. So, and then find reorder items. All the items that have at least have a quantity below the minimum quantity will appear here. You can see the reorder source. The ones in red have errors, and if you scroll to the very end, you can see the error message. What the error is, it will not, when you generate, it will not generate a purchase order for any of these selected lines that have an order. So if I select several of these and I go ahead and click generate and I click on yes, it'll say it generated one purchase order, 0 auto approved, it ordered one item, and it skipped items with no reorder source 1, which was the one I selected. And it'll generate the purchase order. Then you can go ahead and back into purchase orders, and you will see the purchase order that was generated. Now, in restock calc, let me go back there for a second. Specify a build to and a ship to, and all the inventory codes that have the same reorder source, the same vendor, will create one purchase order for all the different inventory codes. So if you have a bunch, like all these, we'll create just one. If you click on highlight them all and then click generate a purchase order, you only get one purchase order for every single inventory code that has this vendor. So I just want to point that out. So that highlights a lot of our changes. The last one I want to point out is we added some new settings. So if you go into system settings and under the system tabs, we added this whole section for purchase orders. So you can specify the number of signature lines you need to show on the PDF. So at the bottom of a PDF, so right now I have one signature line set. So if I go back into purchase orders, I gotta close that. If I go back into purchase orders and I click print, you will see one signature line at the bottom. We allow you don't have to have a signature line, and we do allow up to 2 signature lines for the purchase order. We also added 3 different layouts. You can choose any one of them, and if you want to know what they look like, you could just click the button and it'll load up a dummy layout PDF, and you can see what the different layouts look like. This is layout 1. This is layout 2. That's the layout I'm currently using, and this is the only layout that. And this is layout 3. So this is layout 2 is the only layout you'll see the memo, your notes fields. So I just want to point that out. But you can choose which layout you like the best. And then we also added the ability to customize how your grid for the purchase order lines would look. So we have a ton of different options. And obviously you probably don't know what these options mean just by looking at the name. So when you click on this button, it'll load a PDF that has all the different names and what they're going to look like. So like grid table 4, I'm going to choose it's going to be a black title bars, header columns, and then alternate white and dark gray. So let me choose that one. Let me just go grid table 4. Click done, and then if you go into purchase orders and you go to print, you will see that this is what the grid looks like. So this is a way you can just customize the way you want the purchase order lines to look like. So we figured we would, like I said, there's many different styles you can choose from. And each layout will honor the whatever style you choose. Then the last I want to point out is we have this auto approve purchase orders limit. So when you save a purchase order or generate one, if the total of that purchase order is under the dollar amount you specify here, then the purchase order will automatically be approved. Now, if it's 0, we'll set 0 as auto approved, so then every purchase order will be automatically approved, or no purchase orders will be approved. But also, if you leave it blank, we ignore the approve as well, so nothing will be auto approved. But let's say I specify it at 500 as my auto approve limit. I go back into purchase orders. See, this total is $0. And if I hit save, the approved flags are checked and it says first approved by, and then second approved by is auto approved. So it has been auto approved. Now you can always uncheck the box so it won't get approved. But again, because of the auto approve, if you click save, it will auto approve it again. Now the permissions, let me go ahead and remove that. The last thing I want to point out is how to determine who gets to auto approve or not. Who has permission, who has rights to auto approve. So if I go into security, and I go into my user, and I remove purchase orders. If they have permissions to delete, then they have permissions to approve or unapprove a purchase order. Now, if they don't have permissions to delete, then they will not be able to unapprove or approve a purchase order. However, the one extra case is that if the purchase order is below your $500 purchase order auto approve limit, they will still be able to approve and unapprove because you've already set up the auto approve. So let me show that. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going into inventory. I'm going to remove his permissions. I'm going to exit and reload. I'm going to set the approved limit at 500. And then I'm going to go to purchase orders. See, he does have permissions, but now if I go to this one, and the total's over 1,000, he does not have, he cannot approve or unapprove the thing. But in here, because we're under that auto approve limit, he can just go ahead and unapprove and make changes. This is just in case if they make a purchase order and then they hit save, but they don't have permissions to unapprove something, so it gets approved. So that way, you don't have to get anybody else to come in there and unapprove it. So this is just a way to keep, because sometimes when you're in the middle of work, you just want to go ahead and save it and then continue working on it. So if it's as long as it's under that auto approve limit, you should be good. Now again, you don't have to use the approve or the auto approve. It's just something that if you want to lock fields and prevent anybody from editing it once you're ready to send it to the vendor, then this is just one way of doing that. Also, we did add a notes field, so you can click on that and you can type in your note for each purchase order line. However, those notes probably not show up on the purchase order, the PDF. All right, now, does anybody have any questions on that? I do want to point out once this should be released we're targeting Wednesday, April 30th as the release date. But if you guys have any questions or comments about anything that I've shown on purchase orders or suggestions on how to improve it, then please feel free to let us know, and we will do our best to take your suggestions and come up with a possible solution. So, okay. And Associated Bank is for updating a secondary bank. We noticed that we know we got a couple of calls where people were getting stuck in bank calculation because they accidentally put their ESTA bank as their Associated Bank as part and inside their main bank. So it was creating circular reference. So what the Associated Bank is for is when you run bank calculation, it'll update that bank and any of the associated bank that is tied to that bank. So it's mainly used for like sick time or personal. So if you use a personal time, your sick time gets updated. It can also be used for if you use ESTA, you can do an associated bank of sick time. So anytime you use ESTA, the sick bank will also get updated and show that those hours were used. So I do believe I actually do want to show that quick in payroll. I go into bank types. Yeah, this Associated Bank. So I'm under the personal bank. You don't want to set it up as personal. It'll just create a circular reference where it keeps updating itself. You just want to make sure that you can do sick or vacation. So I just wanted to highlight that. Second one was I was talking about make deposits. We noticed that some people weren't using make deposits and trying to use bank reconciliation, so we want to highlight that bank make deposits where you can deposit your payments from both payment post and cash receipting. You can select the date and the transactions in the financial institution, and then you just click deposit and it'll show up as a deposited transaction. And when you run bank reconciliation, you'll see it as a total. So if you're comparing like deposits, and there's a few things you want to, if you're going to use, if you haven't been using make deposits and you're going to use it, you're going to want to go into general ledger under financial institutions. Make sure you have an account set up as a general ledger account for this bank account or financial institution. You can select any funds you want from the list of funds. All right, I'm assuming y'all can hear me now. Mhm. And then, oh, thank you. And then you need to also make sure that in funds, you go into funds under customers, you set up an undeposited funds account. Otherwise, when you run make deposits, we won't see the funds because that when you post like a cash receipting or payment post, they go into the undeposited funds account. So make sure under your fund you have a undeposited fund account. So those are the steps you need to set up. And then you could just go into make deposits. It'll load all your transactions. You select the date, you can select the bank, and you can. So we're going to do a deposit for $311. We're going to go ahead and make that deposit. Was created. And then so now it was created. So if you go into bank reconciliation, I choose my bank and my internet connections really. Oh, I don't have an opening date. Let's go. This is the bank I need. All right, bank rec. I don't know if that was a good idea. But while that loads, I can also say if you go into undo deposits, you can go ahead and select, you can see your deposit, you can see all the transactions, and when you click on undo selected deposit, it will undo that deposit and move all those funds back into the undeposited fund account, and they'll show up again and make deposits when you run it again. So if I'm looking at type, it'd be under deposit, and there's our deposit. So it'll show up under bank. If you want to, if you're not using bank reconciliation, you want to start using it, make sure you set up your deposit. So when you enter in your payments and cash receipting, you can then go ahead and do a make deposit. And it'll show up on here so you can easily confirm it with your bank. All right, next. Yeah, I know my voice is somehow we're having bad internet connection here. So one thing I want to point out that you may not be aware of is when retiring a sub account, all accounts underneath that account will also retire. So if I go into our general ledger and I go into accounts, if say you're at, let me pick this one. If you retire this account 201-0003, so it's the third level, all accounts underneath that will also be retired. So it won't just retire this account, it'll retire the accounts beneath it. So the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh level will all be retired. So I just want to point that out. So when you're retiring an account, just be careful that you're not accidentally retiring a bunch of accounts. Also, this limit button hides all the retired accounts. So if you want to see previously retired accounts and unretire them, you can go ahead and click that button and it'll show all retired accounts. Yeah, like this one's a retired account. And you can see it there. If I click limit again, it's no longer on the list. So just want to point that out. That's how you can quickly find a retired account. So if you're looking for a particular retired account, you can, if you know the account, you can just filter it, or you can search, I want to see all my, oh, we don't have it's not filtered. So if you have a date specified, you can filter by date for all the retired accounts. If you're talking about the seventh level, no, there is no way. But if you're trying to retire like a sixth level, if you need every seventh level needs to be retired, you can just go into the sixth level and retire the sixth level, and that will automatically retire all the seventh level. But there's no way to go into like if I want to just go ahead and retire like uh 21. Let's go 510. Like you want to retire a bunch of these accounts, there's no way to just go ahead and retire a bunch of them. There you go. So if these aren't retired, so if you want to retire, you will have to go manually. So if unless yes, so but if you go ahead and like want to retire, as long as they're in the same branch, yes, as long as they're in the same branch. So we don't have a way to quickly retire a bunch of level sevens if they're in a different, like this one, the level sixes are all different, but the level five is the same. So if you retire the level five account, all the level sixes and level sevens will be retired. But in this case, I think this is your equipment expense. So I don't think you want, yeah, your direct equipment. I don't think you want that retired at the fifth level. So currently we don't have a way to like to easily retire a bunch of accounts at like the seventh level. So I'm gonna see if there's any questions on the first few things we covered. And you can always unretire if you accidentally retired account. There's really no penalty for retiring account. It just a retired account won't show up in most places like my work or any other place. And if it does, it'll throw a warning saying this account is retired. And it won't show up on here unless you click the limit button. So if you accidentally retired an account, you can always click the limit, find it on here, and unretire it. So just want to point that out. So to uncalculate a depreciation calculation for a fixed asset, you can go into General Ledger Post. You can just select the FASOE and choose the journal. You can delete an individual entry or the whole journal. That doesn't matter. The way we have our new fixed asset calc now is each um, entry has its own offset, so that isn't a problem. We don't have like an uncalculate fixed asset. So you go just into General Ledger Post, change the SOE to FA, find what journal. This one looks good. And you can go ahead and delete individual and it will delete the individual line. So, and there's its offset. So you see we have the line, there's its offset. So if you delete one, you're probably going to want to delete the offset. Or you can do a delete all. So these are all your fixed assets that were calculated. So that's currently the way we um, delete fixed asset calculations. Unload. Yes, I want to unload. Another utility that is kind of useful that we've gotten some questions on is we have a change journal effective date, and that allows you to change a date inside a journal. So if you entered a date wrong, say in like AP where you accidentally entered the wrong effective date, you can run the utility without having to like delete the journal or redo. I don't think I have one lined up. So like if I go to source of AP, let's just say it might be this one. So I can change, so it'll grab all the journals inside that effective date, and you can choose which ones to change by checking it. Let's see, do I have one with more? Please. I don't think so. This is our test data. This is not my database. I had a couple, but you'll see the list of all the dates, so you can change one of them. You don't have to change them all. It'll change all the dates that are selected. So if this is not selected, it won't change that date. This is just a quick and easy way to change an effective date of an invoice or that you posted that was wrong. So another thing that we get from time to time is there's a mistake made in payroll where an employee got the wrong dollar amount on their check, or a time card didn't get approved before, it somehow didn't get imported and they got less money than they should have, or they got more money than they should have, or something happened, and you need to recalculate a payroll that I've already calculated recently. So the first thing you got to remember is if no money has been sent out to that employee, and your deductions such as your state, your FICA, Medicare haven't been submitted to the government. It's a fairly quick and easy process to undo the mistakes and have the correct information. Now, I do want to point out, if money has been sent out, then there are several options, and if you know already what to do, that's fine. Or you can give us a call and we'll be happy to help step you through what steps you can do to make sure that the employee gets their proper money. But the first thing you want to do is you want to uncalculate the payroll using uncalculate payroll deductions. So I will go step by step. You go into payroll, go into uncalculate payroll deductions, you find the payroll and you click uncalculate payroll. Now, at this point, if this employee has a check that hasn't been cashed, that's fine. If you did a direct deposit and they've already been paid, that's also fine, because we'll be recalculating the payroll. And if those numbers didn't change, any dollar amounts didn't change for the other employees, then everything will be fine. So if it's just one employee and they haven't taken out their money, then you can still run it and it'll uncalculate the entire payroll. So then you go ahead into payroll post and you make your corrections and open up the journal, make the changes you need to make, and make your corrections. Now then, once you make your corrections and you think everything's good, you go back into payroll calculation and payroll, you run your payroll calc and make sure you use the same starting check number so that way any other checks that other employees had won't have a different check number. So we're not going to worry, we don't worry about the employee having the check number right now. Just make sure you have the same starting check number in, let's go back there. Yeah, there you go. So that way none of the other checks will be messed up. So that way, and then typically if it's an EFTPS payment, then you can, if you hadn't already submitted the batch file, you can just go ahead and then submit the batch. If you haven't done the file for anybody, you can just go ahead and do the batch upload and everything should be good. But if he needs a check, and obviously if you already printed the check and with the incorrect information, you're going to need to run renumber check to issue him a new check. So once you run payroll calculations, the check number will still be the old check number that you originally sent to him, but it'll have the new updated payroll amount. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run renumber payroll checks with just that check number. So you want to go into under utilities and payroll, renumber payroll checks. You select the month. So I'm going to go 3/01/2025. And then you select the payroll date to renumber. And then since you have his original check number, you want to put it. So I'm just going to put 2250 was his original check number. And then the new check number, so you put that one as a high and the low. And the new check number will be the new check that you're going to print out him. So I'm going to go make this 2255. And this probably won't work because it's a different number. So, but then you go ahead and click on renumber checks and it'll renumber that one check to that new check number. So none of the other checks will be touched. So then your system will correctly reflect that this employee got paid this dollar amount with this check. And then you can also do the same thing if your deduction checks, your FICA, Medicare, federal, state, also need to be updated as well. So, and I believe if you already submitted them for your, if you submitted them via electronically, I believe you can just submit that additional amount. You don't have to worry about it because your 941s will pick it up. So all it has to do is your 941 has to match what you deposited reported and deposited throughout the quarter. So I believe if you just do a separate payment of that amount, then that should be fine. But if you're not 100% sure, you can always give us a call and we'll be sure to make sure that you have the correct information. So that is everything I have for today. Again, I apologize for some of the issues we've had. And I also want to make sure everyone knows that I believe it's March 12th is the second Monday, or not March, May 12th, the second Monday in May. We are doing Cogitate's annual webinar, so that'll be a little bit bigger and a little bit longer. And George will be the one presenting on that. We'll be talking a bit more about different things that we usually talk about at our annual webinars. And then in June, we'll be showing, and we'll have a regular webinar in June, and we'll probably be showing off our new document management in June. So at least if it's not done, it'll be far long enough that we can show and get some feedback on what exactly people want. So those are some things to look forward to. I did want to point out for those of you who weren't at the beginning, I want to go back to the taxable wage limit. In the quarterly tax reports under the state, you're going to want to manually change this to 900. And then click this and it'll save it. If I go ahead and select the folder, it'll automatically save it as 9,000. This is where our number is stored in our INI file, which we don't have access to on an update. Probably next year it'll be coming from our tax table, but prior to that it was just coming from our INI file. And I think this year was the first year in a long time that they changed it from 9,500 to 9,000. So please go ahead and do that before you submit your first quarter MyWAM. If you already submitted it at 9,500, you'll probably get a letter from them saying that there was a mathematical error, and they'll say, "Oh, this is how much you owe. Please pay." That happened to us, but we'd already paid more than that, so we actually, they'll just refund you the difference. So I just wanted to make sure that anyone who come in late also was aware that they need to make sure that their taxable wage limit is 9,000 and not 9,500. Thank you all for coming and have a great rest of the week.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.